All right, welcome, Security Simplified podcast listeners. This is episode 14 and the third episode of the incident management series. Joining me is my good friend, Mr. Cloutier, Ryan Cloutier. How you doing?
Doing well, sir. Looking forward to tonight's topic. This will be a good one.
Yeah, I thought last week was good too, man, when we talked about the myths.
Yeah. Well, and myths and believing them a lot of times can lead to tonight's topic, which is mistakes.
That's right. Yeah, so tonight's topic is the most common incident management mistakes. And this is based on, a few hundred incident responses over the years. So take it with a grain of salt. You can either learn from our mistakes or feel free to make your own. It's up to you.
I personally like the approach of make new mistakes. Don't make mistakes that others have made that you are able to find out and learn about. Try to make new mistakes and then teach us what you did wrong so that we can avoid it in the future.
Exactly. My dad used to call that the dumb tax. He said, "Son, I've already paid the dumb tax for you. Why would you want to double down on it?" It's like, yeah, right. Good point. So let's hope that you as a listener don't pay the dumb tax, because I already paid it. It's already paid. The IRS ain't coming to your house. The security IRS. Is there such
Oh, did they call you too? I totally got a text message. I'm supposed to give them my multi-factor code and my social security number.
Oh,
I can't.
Yeah. No. That I think that was them. I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised it took you so long to get that call. I mean, I got that call like a month ago.
Well, I have an Android, you see, so.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go.
So,
all right.
Speaking of things that are out of date, one of the most common incident response mistakes is that the plan is out of date. So, having a plan is great, but an untested plan or an out-of-date plan that does not currently reflect the current environment, has invalid or incorrect information in it, can actually cause problems, and in a lot of cases is about as useful as not having a plan in the first place.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even worse than not having a plan in the first place, because you have people assuming that things are there that aren't there, or following processes that they think are valid that aren't valid, and then you get 5 steps down the process, and then you realize, oh crap, what the hell? And then you just wasted, an hour or two, maybe more. And we mentioned in the last podcast how important it is to go at a deliberate pace, right? To make sure that if you're going too fast to document everything, you're going too fast, but you also don't want to waste time. You don't want to be inefficient in your incident response. So I'd argue that sometimes having an out-of-date plan is worse than not having one at all.
Yeah, the wrong direction is definitely worse than no direction.
Yeah, and the fix for this is, and it's just human nature. We run into this a lot. You get the plan done. You're like, awesome. Now I can move on to, the other 500 things on my plate and list of things to do. But you need to make the plan operational, and then you can go do other stuff. And making it operational means you tie it into change control. You tie it into, disaster recovery. You change it into asset management. So that when you're updating these other things, it just triggers an update to your plan, at least to check if your plan needs an update.
I like to schedule my plan with my quarterly access review. So take a look at the plan, if you're doing quarterly access review, that's also a good time to look at the plan, at least from a contact's perspective. Maybe you don't look at the whole plan in one sitting, but if you chunk it out, you can actually get through it with, less effort. I know for me, if it's, hey, review the entire 300-page plan, well, I'll get to that when I can get to it. But if it's in a smaller bite, hey, can you review this section, or can you make sure contacts are up to date? It's a lot more palatable and easier to get through. The other thing that can be helpful is distributing the review and update of the plan among the team. Assign sections to folks. This makes it more likely for it to happen, and less burdensome and daunting, and therefore less likely to be deferred till later.
Yep, good point. Which brings us to the second mistake, which is also associated with the plan, It's the plan just doesn't fit, right? It wasn't done right to begin with, meaning it was a compliance driven plan. You went and downloaded the plan from somewhere, as a template. You didn't take the time to actually customize that template to fit your needs, your environment. You check the box, you put it on a shelf, and that was that. So when we come in and do the incident response, we ask for your plan, and you're like, oh, yeah, I got the plan. And you can kind of tell by the way they answer, like, yeah, we got a plan. You can kind of tell that they didn't do it right because they knew it. And, it's useless.
Yeah. And you got to right size it, trying to, especially at the beginning. If you're at the beginning of doing this stuff, don't try to build the monolithic, all-encompassing, every last item thing. Build something that's going to fit those critical assets, those crown jewels, and then mature and grow it from there. That also helps you to keep the plan at the right size and the right scope for what you're trying to get accomplished.
Well, it's like what we do here at Security Studio, right? Keep it simple. You don't put steps in a plan just for the sake of having steps in a plan. You put steps in a plan because they're necessary, they're vital. Anything else beyond what's necessary is inefficient, it's a waste of time, and get it out of the plan. So, yeah, you'll find that incident response planning is actually easier than a lot of people make it out to be.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
All right, you want to take on the next one?
So the next one is poor incident response team leadership. So the person that's leading the incident response has a pretty strong impact on the outcome and quality of the response team and the activities they conduct. So, a hothead and somebody that's going to, react quickly, up the pressure in the room, probably is going to be harmful to a successful execution of the plan. Having someone that is absolutely certain that this system cannot be the problem or this process cannot be the problem, they're biased in whatever way that they're biased, also can present a challenge, right? If you're not willing to look, we talked, I don't remember if it was this podcast or another, but about, that can't possibly run on a Mac because it's not a Mac thing. And it's like, okay, that's a bias that'll get in the way if you're actually dealing with incident response. So, calm, cool, methodical leaders are the best leaders to run incident response. And remember that everybody has a bad day, so you should have at least 2, maybe 3 backups in the event that normally calm person just had a life event or something that has them in a state of not calm. That's not the person to put in the seat of decision-making during that particular incident.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Some people just don't have what it takes. People. I mean, look at your own life. There are certain people that just don't have the calmness about them. They just don't, they panic. And, fine. There's a place in the world for you. On the incident response team is probably not the place. I've been accused multiple times in an incident response as not caring because I am calm, because I am emotionless during incident responses. I reassure them that I absolutely 100% care. Otherwise I wouldn't be here, but let's stay focused. Let's get done what we got to get done. And the bias thing, it's the same thing with assumptions. A mistake that we see a lot is, I've seen this before. So I'm going to skip over these 10 steps because I'm just already going to assume that this is the same thing I saw over here at this other company or whatever, when it's different. You don't ever make assumptions. You don't ever use bias. You have the evidence take you where you need to go, period. And so you need that kind of leader that can think straight, that can put emotions aside, that can, think critically. And we've also had times when we've excused incident response leaders from the room because they're not providing value to the incident response. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're just highly emotional. Maybe this is one of their own systems. And so they're very much personally invested in this. Step aside. You're not helping. And it's it's a tough discussion, I think, to have, but it helps when you're a third party too, because during an incident response, I don't really care if you like me.
Right.
Afterwards, we can be buddies and have beers and whatever. But now, no. Let's just get it done.
Well, and speaking of getting things done, another common mistake is that the plan is not operational. So it just isn't going to work. It's, you haven't factored in the other parts of the organization. It's not properly integrated into the other pieces within the organization. Asset management, change control, it's not leveraged or used. It's got a bunch of dust on it. Incidents, it's important to note incidents happen every day, all day long. Not every incident is a security incident. Not every incident is a critical incident, and incidences are not breaches. Just a reminder.
Yeah, absolutely, man. If you have an incident response plan that truly is operational, you can even skip testing in a lot of cases because you're already testing it. It's being tested every day, right? So part of that incident response is having everybody needs to know you have a plan, right? I mean, that's step one in making it operational. You have to communicate it, socialize it with your users. It doesn't matter how awesome your SOC is and your, logging and monitoring and all that other stuff. That stuff's really important. But the number one most likely way that you're going to learn about an incident is going to be somebody telling you.
Yep.
Whether you like that or not, it's going to be the FBI, the Secret Service, your customer, an employee. So people need to know you have an incident response plan so that when they get that call, they know what to do with it. And you have a central point where you triage those calls where they're quickly evaluated. We talked about that in the last podcast where the first 4 steps can be done by anybody. And some of those incidents will be low severity incidents. They're handled at the help desk. Some of those will be moderate severity incidents where maybe it rolls up into the security team, but you don't assemble the incident response team yet. And then there's the critical ones, right, where you do assemble the incident response team. That's what we mean by making an incident response plan operational, is defining what an incident is, having that plan, communicating that with everybody, and then having this, centralized kind of process. Yeah, it's easy. Not easy. Simple.
Simple. Something that will make simple complex is calling law enforcement too early in the process, or in some cases at all. And that's not a knock against law enforcement. That is, depending on who they are, what they are, which agency of the law enforcement world they represent, they may or may not have capabilities. This may or may not be in their jurisdiction. It can become murky in a hurry. And so if you're not sure that you have something to take to them, you may want to delay their involvement. The only exception is if you have absolute certainty that there is human life or safety at risk, and involving law enforcement would be a necessary thing to prevent harm to people. Remember, human life trumps all. No matter what you learn in these, it's always human life first. The other thing to consider is if law enforcement is involved and you are doing things at their request, so you're the hands of their word, you are operating under the color of law, which may or may not be in your benefit or interest, and you may be exposing yourself to certain liabilities, or potentially, if the law enforcement officer isn't aware of that, you could corrupt or cause any evidence discovered to then be thrown out in court later. So, anything to add to that, Evan?
No, yeah, for sure. It's a good idea to have these contacts with law enforcement prior to an incident. So part of building your plan should be reaching out to your local law enforcement, getting an understanding of what their capabilities are. Different local law enforcement, agencies have different capabilities. Some are very sophisticated, have a forensics lab and all that other stuff. Some can't even spell cybersecurity. So, knowing that up front, defining why I would call law enforcement in the first place. Usually law enforcement is called in when it's a criminal matter, meaning there's going to be a prosecution. It's going to go to court criminally. They're not going to help you at all if it's a civil matter. They're not going to help you at all if it's not going to be a legal matter at all, right? So there's lots of reasons why I wouldn't call law enforcement. There are a few reasons I would. And yeah, about the color of law, the Constitution applies to law enforcement, right? When you talk about, say, illegal search and seizure, for instance, that's in the Constitution. As a private citizen, that doesn't apply to me. So I can go seize stuff all the time. I mean, I might be stealing something, but at least within my own organization, I can take, the CEO tells me to go grab that thing, I can go grab that thing. Whereas if law enforcement tells me, well, now I'm bound by the Constitution, do I have a warrant? If I don't, I might be getting myself into some serious criminal trouble myself. And, that's not the intent. So yeah, be really careful about calling law enforcement and be really clear on why you're doing it, for sure.
And to that point, the next one is that communications are not handled well. Mm-hmm. So, and this is a passion of mine. I won't jump on the soapbox because we don't have the time, but the better you communicate, the more effective you are. Insert any topic here, right? So effective communication, concise communication, controlling the message, reassuring people that things are, somewhat under control, but not overpromising, not don't undersell it, don't oversell it, stick to the facts, keep it crisp. I've seen that go very well. I've seen the absence of, like Evan likes to always say, right? People will fill in gaps, right? Empty spaces get filled. So absence of communication can create problems. Communicating with the wrong language can create problems. So best thing to do is have a communications section to your incident response plan and an appointed communications lead who will be responsible for internal communications to handle communications within the response team itself as well as externally to the media. That could be one person, that might be multiple people. But the rule I like to follow is one person does the talking. Yeah. One communicator assigned per message to be sent.
Yeah, a singular message, a unified message is absolutely critical. And like you said, the empty spaces do always get filled, usually externally. So you've got really three communication flows in an incident response. You've got internal to your own employees, to your own organization. You've got within the team itself, and then you've got external. And what usually happens with those empty spaces, on the external, it gets filled with assumptions. Internal, it gets filled with rumors. And within the team itself, it's chaos, right? So you always have somebody handle those communications. So the person that you appoint for that has to be skilled in both internal and external communications. Within the team itself, the way we handle that usually, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but having a scribe, that's somebody who is documenting, taking notes all the time about what's happening on the incidents, what decisions have been made, the outcomes, all that stuff. And the reason why we want that is because people come and go from the incident response team. You'll call a new infrastructure person in or a database administrator and then excuse them and so on and so forth. And what you don't want to do is waste a whole bunch of time bringing them up to speed, right? That's very wasteful. So instead, when somebody joins in the incident response, it's, get me up to speed. It's like, here you go. Here's the documentation. Read it. Join us in 15 minutes once you've had a chance to, consume it, versus us stopping, explaining it all to you, trying to remember, wait, did I click that button first? I think I did. Yeah, whatever. Don't worry about it. I mean, that stuff is critical and you're wasting time. So yeah, those communications are super, super important.
So next we have, when you're in the response, your response actions are following assumptions and not evidence. So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, right? Don't assume you know anything. Look, investigate, follow scientific process, right? Test it. Does it do what I think it did? Does that text file really have 5 characters in it? I can't make that assumption because it's 5 kilobits. I have to actually look and know and operate off of fact. No two incidents are the same. Even within the same systems, they're not going to be the same. Even with the same variant of malware hitting you again, it's not going to be exactly the same. So you have to stick to the evidence and let the evidence drive you. not opinions. And if you don't have evidence, then the thing you should be focused on is gathering evidence so that you can make an informed decision about the next step to take in the response process.
Yeah, man. And it's a slight difference, right? I mean, I certainly want to bring to bear the experience I have from other places, right? So I don't want to discount that. I know I have seen something similar over here, so I don't want to discount that because that brings value to the team. But what I want to do is I want to either validate or invalidate that assumption as quickly as possible. So I can just put it aside. Like, I've seen the same thing over here. Let me go see, is this what's happening? No? Okay, then let's move on to the next place where the evidence is taking us. Because the evidence doesn't, assuming you've got the evidence, God forbid, the logging's turned off or somebody overwrote the logging or whatever else, but the evidence doesn't lie. The evidence is something that you can trust unless it's been modified. So if it points you in one direction, that's where you go.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the next one, which is the plan didn't account for step one, being prepared and going through preparation. So there is no evidence. There are no logs. There is nothing to go off of. At that point, focus on hardening stuff, rebuild, so you can trust again and turn the damn logs on. And the next time around, you'll have some evidence to go off of. Insight to add to that? I mean, that's how I've ever handled something where there's no logs. It's like, all right, we'll burn it down, rebuild it, and turn on logging. Yeah,
basically, because, depending on the incident, it's really common that the step would be to, after the investigation or during the investigation, we want to get containment, meaning if it's active, stop the damage, stop the infiltration, whatever's going on, stop it, and then begin kind of getting back to normal. But while you're doing all that stuff, you want to collect all this evidence. And one of the things we miss that's really critical, even if we're not going to go to court with this, is if I have a gap in the evidence, I'm going to take my best guess that this is the way they got in and this is the way the thing happened. And so that's what I'm going to do in terms of containment. And it might be wrong. And so, if you don't have that evidence, we start putting things back together again. It's like, oh crap, they're here again. We must have missed on the containment side of things. And hopefully by that time you've got, you fixed the logging thing so we can nail it the second time. I have seen, not in my own incident response, thank God, but I have seen 3-4 attempts at containment where they didn't learn the first time. So if you couldn't get containment the first time because you didn't have adequate logging, well, then before I would go to containment, then I would pick up that logging. So then if I did miss on the containment, at least now I've got the evidence to tell me how it actually happened so I don't do it the third time. So be careful on the steps because I've seen 3 or 4 times people take the swing and they're like, we can't get it. It's like, well, what did you do? And there's that obvious gap, like, turn on your logging then maybe. So yeah, you need logging, right? This isn't like pixie dust or nothing. I mean, we go with what the evidence tells us. If there's no evidence, we're not being told anything, and there's a gap in what we know, and we're just going to have to assume. One of the things that people also like to do, management primarily, is who did this to us? Who did this, right? They're looking for attribution, which we usually try to convince you not to do because it's a waste of time and money because what are you going to do anyway, right? So you found out of some Eastern Bloc criminal gang, are you going to prosecute them? Good luck. I mean, so what? You don't need to know. But let's say that you can't convince them that, they still want attribution. There's zero chance in hell that you're going to do it without evidence. So,
right. Well, okay, so we got 2 more to work through, and this one's a little long tonight, but it's such an important topic. We appreciate you sticking with us. People knew but didn't report it. So people are the most common and sometimes most valuable input into the incident response process, right? How do you know what's happening? Did they see something? Did they, most incidents, to the point we made earlier, come from someone telling you, well, that someone might be your employee who just got a ransomware splash on their laptop, and hey, I'm trying to tell you. And the reason they don't report is they don't know how to, or in a lot of cases, who to report it to. They don't feel comfortable, or they don't understand the significance of reporting the thing they've seen. Well, my mouse was moving by itself, but I just thought that was weird, right? So every incident response training I give starts with who and how to report. Who matters. It matters. Where do I go? What is the email? What is the human I go find? The phone number I call. If you are proactive, you should have a standardized reporting form or process to make it easy to collect consistent information from them so that you don't waste time trying to tease out and interview somebody that may or may not have the right set of words or even memory of what actually happened. And then the significance of reporting weird stuff. When I was a service guy doing security response stuff, please bother me with the goofiness. I would much rather you bother me with, no, that's your mouse key or your keyboard key is stuck down and that's why it's LLLL in the Word doc versus, we've got something real here. So, but that all goes back to communication, goes back to connection and other things we talk about on other podcasts. So
for sure, man, they have to know how to. I mean, that's inexcusable. That's your fault as a security team for not informing them how to. The second one is also your fault, by the way, because they don't feel comfortable because, maybe you're not inviting. Maybe you punish your users or make them feel stupid, when they report something to you. That's inexcusable. They're part of the team. If we want their participation, we got to make them feel like they're part of the team. So for them not feeling comfortable, that's a bad culture. You're going to have more issues than just this. And not recognizing the importance. Communicating to your users that computers only do what you tell them to do. If it's running slower than it was yesterday, something is telling you that. So call help desk. You know what I mean? That's what we're here for. We're here to serve. So if things seems a little bit off, help use us. So yeah, big time.
And then lastly, arrangements weren't made ahead of time with third parties. So unless you are the rare unicorn company that has a full forensics team, incident response team, hardened investigators, malware engineers, application security experts, et cetera, you're probably going to need to involve outside help, outside expertise. Very, very few times have I met teams that have enough even mid-level experience across all the specialty domains to effectively handle a complex incident from soup to nuts without needing some kind of outside assistance. So, and if you set your arrangements up ahead of time, you're going to save money, you're going to save time, and they may be able to jump in even sooner and short circuit some of the investigation pain because they prepared for this and they have other tooling that maybe you don't, or other things that can help move you through the process more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Get that paperwork done out of the way. And you can tell when you reach out to an organization about, being your third-party trusted expert, if they're trying to sell you something, probably not a good one because what we want is just an arrangement. I just want a relationship. That shouldn't cost you a dime. And you can also tell when the third-party expert wants to do everything they can for you not to call me. I don't want you to call me. I got plenty of revenue in other places, right? Hopefully in preventative things. I don't want you to call me. So when you do call me, I'm going to try to help you out over the phone before we actually do make this an official, okay, we're going to get involved. And I want to try to give you some advice, give you free plans, free whatever I can so that you don't have to call me. Because when you call me, bad things have already happened. And I don't want those bad things to happen. So that's how you can tell a good third party.
I like it. So right as we hit the 30-minute mark, and we are going to call it next week, is most common incident response reactions. So make sure you tune in for that. Hopefully you've learned a lot tonight about the mistakes that can be made in incident response planning, and you update.
That's right. See you next week.